Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad you could join us today. Today, we're here to introduce Chat with Your Data, which is Alation's newest capability that helps anyone, no matter their technical background, get fast, accurate answers from trusted data. I'm Megan Brill, Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Alation.
And hi, I'm Ines. I'm in product as well, and in AI. I was a co-founder at NumberStation, which joined Alation through the acquisition.
And I was lucky to join Ines and the team at NumberStation for a couple of years as well. So happy to be here. So together today, we'll give you the story of Chat with Your Data, show you behind the scenes, and give you a demo. So here's what we'll cover over the next 45 minutes. First, I'll set the background, give you some background on NumberStation, which Ines mentioned was recently acquired just a few months ago by Alation. And then we'll introduce Chat with Your Data and its features. And this is the first byproduct of the acquisition, and we'll walk through its key features. Next, we'll go through a demo and a technical deep dive with Ines, and we'll wrap up with Q&A at the end. So make sure to add your questions to the chat. Okay, so let's learn a little bit more about NumberStation, where it started and what the team built, and why it's such a natural fit with Alation. So the NumberStation co-founders met in the Stanford AI lab back in 2015, where they were applying LLMs to structured data, structured enterprise data. And later in the year, or in 2021, the company was incorporated, and earlier that year, Ines actually authored the first paper on the topic. So that was really, really cool to see. The first two products that came out of the startup was first a conversational analytics product, and then it was followed by an agent framework that enterprises could use to apply to their data applications. And then finally, just a few months ago, we were acquired by Alation, combining Alation's metadata and governance foundation with NumberStation's advanced AI capabilities. So what the NumberStation team saw that really aligns with the broader transformation is that the way that people want to use data has fundamentally changed. And we're really moving from this out-of-date search-based discovery into AI-powered answers. And nobody wants to search through endless dashboards and spreadsheets or reports anymore, or wait on a data team to get them answers. So they want fast and accurate answers to their business problems, and they expect to be able to do that with AI. So given this, everyone's trying to make AI work on structured data. And something that really used to be in the background that's really come front and center is metadata. And right now we're seeing every major player like Microsoft, Snowflake, and Salesforce are trying to race to control data within their vertically integrated stacks because it's really the key to mastering AI. But the problem is that metadata is super messy and nobody wants to deal with it, but that's where Alation is different. And we make metadata manageable, discoverable, and actionable. And instead of locking customers into a single stack, we can help unify context across what they already use. And that's really how you can make AI work safely and transparently and at scale. And something we've seen so many customers experience is AI is a lot easier to get started than it is to get right. And that's because the LLMs, general LLMs that people use were trained on unstructured text, but they really lack the awareness of join schemas and definitions that are within the metadata that can give the responses the accuracy that the enterprise needs. And really the metadata is what holds like the decision driving power within that for enterprises. So they're really good at autocomplete and sounding really great, but when it comes to analytics, it's not something you really want to rely on. They can often hallucinate, and without that context, it can create a lot of risk within the enterprise. And so that's why we really want to rely on metadata, and sometimes we refer this to this as like a knowledge layer that the AI can look at for that accuracy. So something that the Number Station team did early on was run experiments on the accuracy of LLMs with and without metadata. And so the experiments that you're seeing on the screen were actually run in a production environment with one of our largest customers at the time, Jones Lang LaSalle. And we looked at how the LLMs behaved without metadata and with metadata. Without it, the results were really hit or miss. Results were often wrong or incomplete, and it was really hard to get that enterprise level response that's really required for them. But when you added metadata, accuracy percentage points went up 30%. And it just really shows the difference, and that metadata being the critical piece between AI that's guessing and the AI that you can actually trust. So that really gets to the heart of why Alation and Number Station are such a great pair. So Alation's bringing this metadata and governance foundation, while Number Station's bringing its advanced AI capabilities. And together you can have AI that understands data and is paired with context and control. And that brings us to today. We're excited to introduce the first capability post-acquisition, which is Chat with Your Data. So I think we touched on a couple of these points already, but it's worth touching on again and just looking at the major pain points that the enterprise sees. And the first piece here is that knowledge is scattered and siloed across a bunch of different places within dashboards and spreadsheets, and it's really hard to find consistent data that you can connect to and trust. The second thing is that despite all of the BI spend that we've seen companies do, it's really still impossible for folks to self-serve. And often you're relying on a data team that could be bottlenecked or creating a lot of inefficiencies within the enterprise. And then finally, AI is really hard to operationalize and trust. And that's because just what we've just seen, without the metadata and governance, AI can really hallucinate, create risk, and make it really hard to trust. And one concept I want to introduce quickly is the concept of a data product at Alation. So a data product is something that you can take the data assets of your choice, the associated metadata and the governance policies, and package it really nicely into a reusable product. And what's great about these products, data products, is that they can be used to solve business problems and are really easily consumed by AI, which is why we love them. Great, so let's actually introduce Chat with Your Data. So first, Chat with Your Data, as we just looked at data products, will first unite all of your data sources, your governance, your policies, into this kind of trusted knowledge layer like we referred to earlier, kind of really setting the stage for something that AI can consume. And then second, this actually gives business users the opportunity to self-serve. They can just ask in plain English, and our metadata-aware agents will deliver accuracy results up to 60% higher, and really do the hard work of the technical legwork that we see and that we often rely on data teams for. And then finally, you can have confidence in these responses. It's not black box AI. Our governed agents give you transparency into the assets that were used, the SQL, and even explain what the model did. So you know that the results that you're getting are accurate and can be trusted. So what type of questions can you ask to chat with your data? What does this look like in practice? And it really depends on the data product that you want to build and the questions that you want to ask. But you might want to ask questions about performance in a region, or what campaigns drove the most leads, or which accounts might be at risk for churn. And really, these are questions that we would normally see you waiting on an analyst or digging through dashboards for. But with Chat with Your Data, anybody, regardless of department or their skill level, can ask these questions and get answers that are accurate and explainable and trusted. So let's look at how Chat with Your Data works. So the first step is creating our data products, which we love, that create that knowledge layer to, again, capture all of the policies and access controls and governance. These are customized to your unique data stack and your data models and use cases, and they really ensure that there's consistency across the metrics and definitions that are used. Next, we'll enable chat. So we'll turn on our metadata-aware agents, leverage the joins, the business definitions, enterprise context that can give us the SQL or Python that really aligns with your organizational standards. And as we heard, read your metadata. And then third, the user just asks a question in plain English, no SQL required. And we return results that are explainable and accurate. And again, we show the SQL that was used, the model behavior. So those are always available within the product. And then finally, there's a feedback loop. So data experts can validate or adjust outputs, and the system actually gets smarter over time and more accurate the more that you use it and the more feedback that you give it. So let's look at one customer use case. So one of our customers, Euromonitor, is a global leader in market research, and they bring market insights to customers and have been doing so for over 50 years. And their customers want to know a lot of different things about different products on the market. It could be, how much, what was the most popular cheese sold in Switzerland, or what beer had the most sales in Austria last quarter. So there's a lot of different things that they might want to find out within market insights. And what their clients have been using to date is a product that a Euromonitor has called Passport. But this product was really stuck in this out-of-date search-based discovery. You had to navigate through multiple pages, complex filters to find answers, probably have to reset it if you did something wrong. So kind of cumbersome, and it really made it slow for them to get to answers and hard to flexibly explore the data. And what we did with Euromonitor was actually integrate Chat with Your Data into their Passport product through APIs and totally transformed the customer experience. So their customers can really just answer questions in plain English and get answers right away. But Euromonitor has a peace of mind and knowing that we've maintained the same trust and accuracy that they're known for, just delivered and packaged in a much easier way and experience. Okay, so that was just a quick intro through Chat with Your Data, what it can do, how you set it up. And now I'd love to pass this over to Ines, and she can give you a demo and technical deep dive.
Awesome, thank you, Megan. All right, so I'll just do a quick live demo to show you the product features, and then we'll do a deeper dive into how this actually works behind the scenes. All right, so you're probably familiar with this, but this is the data product marketplace, and that's where essentially Chat with Your Data is embedded, and it's interacting with these data products that you're seeing here, which essentially it's kind of like a collection of assets from your structured data warehouse with a lot of context that is really required to make these AI systems work. So if you wanted to start a new use case, let's say I'm like a retail store and I want to analyze my sales by product or by geography, the first thing I'll do is I'll go and create a data product in the marketplace. I'm not going to go through the full process because this is a lengthy job, but essentially there's the data product builder where you could put a prompt and say, build me a data product to analyze my sales data. Behind the scenes, what will happen is there's agents and LLMs that will look at your data catalog and will essentially identify what are the best objects in your catalog to answer this question. And the motivation of using data as a product is we want to like centralize and really treat these assets like their software or code. So you want to have like version control. You want to have an owner that will be responsible for maintaining this over time. And the reason is we've seen with organization, there's BI, there's a lot of products and tools that are released out there, but it actually can cause more chaos over time because things are exploding in complexity. you start seeing conflicting numbers from dashboard A to dashboard B. So these data products are kind of like core and centralized source of truth for a specific business facing use case. In this instance, for instance, retail sales. So typically I would send this, and you can already try this if you have access to the Copilot. But assuming I ran the job, it's going to take a couple minutes. And essentially what it does behind the scene is really goes over the catalog to identify the objects. So for that specific prompt, this is the product that we would get after some iteration. So it's not like out of the box. And typically we want a user to like refine the product either through natural language or by editing the YAML configuration itself. To really get to this like final data product that represents the knowledge that we need to answer any sales questions on this data. So in this specific instance, we have a product which has a couple tables. So there's like sales data, customer data, geography data, and we have different columns in each table. So here, for instance, we have the product ID, sales date, quantity, total amount. So that's for analyzing the actual sales metric. And once that product is ready, we can start chatting with it. And kind of the idea is these descriptions that we have for the different fields are really critical to help bring context in the LLMs, which we'll talk about in a minute in terms of like how do we get this context ready. But so once I have my data product, I can go and start asking questions. So I could say, what are the most sold coffee products? And so behind the scenes, we have the number station agents that are kind of plugged into the data product interface. So they really can do a lot of things on these data products, including like searching them, getting the context, and then executing SQL on top of the connectors. So here we see that we have an agent that started doing some work. It's writing a query. So this query is relatively simple. We're asking for total sales by product. And it's generating this table for me and giving me the results. So here I see that I have a couple of coffee brands and the total sales that was done for my specific retail store. And it's giving me like a final textual answer as well. What's interesting as well is kind of the lineage and the transparency. So essentially we're saying for every answer, we can trace back to the individual columns in your data catalog that were used to answer that question. So here for the description, it used dim product, that product description, and you can link back to the catalog if you want to do more. And this really helps with kind of understanding like the source of the answer and sometimes resolving conflicts if you see like two different numbers in a query. You can also see the full SQL. So that's the SQL that was actually generated in the warehouse. And kind of the interesting things is you see that there's joins here that were generated. So it's doing a join between fax sales and the dim product. And basically here, what's nice is these joins are not like randomly generated by ChatGPT. They're actually coming from your data catalog based on the queries that we have observed and whatever metadata and context was provided. So there's a lot of things that are not left to the model to generate. It's really, we want to ground the answers as much as possible to ensure high accuracy. Okay, so what else can I do? I could say, show me this in a bar chart. And then it's going to kick off another agent, which is responsible for charting. So let's say I'm trying to have a presentation to my CEO to like say, okay, I think we should discontinue these brands and continue these ones. That's the type of use cases that these agents can do. And especially I don't need like my data team to help me with this. As long as the data products are available and built, then there's a lot of self-service use cases that can be powered by these data products. So the charting agent is actually using Python behind the scenes to generate the charts. So I see here that I have a bar chart with my data products, and then I can even be like more creative and say, use nice shades of purple, for instance, in the chart. And it's going to go and customize it to my individual preference so that I can put it in my presentation. So just to recap, the idea is to really build these core assets, which we call data product, on top of all the knowledge that you have in your catalog, and then surface those through chat with these agents to help with the different analytics use cases and like visualization use cases like this one, where I can download my chart and use it later in a specific presentation. Okay, so that wraps up the demo. I will now jump into the technical deep dive, and we'll have questions at the end. So, all right. All right. So in this section, basically, what I want to cover is kind of behind the scenes how this works, and especially why this solution might be different than other things that you may have seen on the market. And the four core capabilities I want to highlight are the things that usually our customers appreciate about working with us. So one is accuracy, and it's really like basically the idea of that set text to SQL and working with structured data is extremely hard. And we need to have like at least 90% or even more accuracy on these systems to get to production. And a lot of solutions don't provide that accuracy. So I'm going to explain a little bit how we get there. It's a journey. It's not like out of the box, but how do we make that possible? Number two is the integration and the ability to go across platform, because it'd be a shame to kind of like just stick to one tool. Like you want to be able to go across all the data systems that you're using. Number three is transparency and like explaining how all the answers are coming from, and especially like the source of each individual dimension or metric that's being used. And the final one, which is actually really important, which is governance. And so essentially, like, how do we make sure that the right people and the right users have access to the right thing? When we have this unified agentic interface, it can be like a bit tricky to see that governance. So like explaining a little bit how that's implemented. All right, so accuracy. First thing is like, why does this even matter? And like, why do we care about context so much? So I'm providing an example here. Like, let's say you have the question, how many active users do we have? If someone asks that question and I send it to ChatGPT alongside the schema of my warehouse, let's say my database has a column called status or active status, then the intuitive answer would be to say, I'm going to count the number of customers in my table and filter for status equals active. And that's a natural answer. But let's say we're actually in a scenario where this is wrong, and the actual answer for what is defined active means a customer that has placed an order within a specific time frame. That business logic is, someone could say, a bit weird. Like, why aren't we using the active column when it's there? But it's just the reality of the world today. Like, there's people changing in organization. Someone may have created that column, they left, that column may be deprecated, but it's still there. And the AI agents, if you just plug them to your database, they don't know all of that. So you really need that context layer, which will say, oh, this status column, don't use it. It's not valid, like just ignore it. And to consider a customer active, you need to look at this other table and use this logic to generate that query correctly. And so that's really kind of illustrating the reality of how data is modeled today. And it's really important to capture these nuances in the LLMs to deliver accurate results. So the way we do this is we have these data products and we store that knowledge in the data products. And to get the data products right, how do we even start? The idea is to leverage all the knowledge that is already stored within Alation and within your data assets. So for instance, if you have a dashboard and you have like a calculation of profit in your dashboard, we can parse that, parse the SQL. And in the Copilot example where I was showing how to build a product, the thing that takes a long time is actually parsing that SQL and storing it is in the data product as a metric to have the calculation right. Another example would be if you have like metadata columns and their description saying like kind of the business logic that this is how we define an active customer and this column is invalid, that knowledge will also be transferred to the data product so that we can have like the right answers generated. And obviously, your catalog is not perfect, your dashboards are not perfect, so there's going to be conflicts when you create from all these different sources, which is why this is not a fully automated process. Like, you want a human in the loop to iterate over the product and say, this is right, this is wrong, this is my final centralized source of truth, but it kind of accelerates the journey to get there by like cold starting kind of this data product layer, which powers the agents. And then once you've created the initial layer, like there's still like room for improvement. Like, you don't want to have, you know, just that and you're done. You need something that like continues evolve. So what I'm showing here is how do you improve your data products over time? And the idea is to use feedback. So instead of like, you know, having users directly go in the data product and figure out all the tweaks. It's kind of a manual and lengthy process. What we want to do is we ground it in like the agent's answers. So here, essentially, like I'm asking a question and I'm providing feedback and saying, actually, I don't want you to use that dimension. I wanted you to use this other dimension. This is the correct answer. What we'll do is we have mechanisms to look at that feedback and say, these are the actions that we suggest you should do. And apologies, this is a bit fast, but these are the actions that we, oops, sorry. Just go back to show this step. Videos and slides are not a great idea. Yeah, this is the suggested action you should do to essentially include this dimension in your data product. So it's kind of like suggesting fixes to make on your core data product so that next time someone asks the same question, now they can get the correct answer. And that feedback mechanism run continuously so that over time, the more people use data products and chat, the better the answers will get over time. So let's say you started at 80% accuracy and now people started using, and now you can get to 95 over a couple iterations. And obviously, this process of suggested fixes is not open to everyone. It's more for data product owners and admins who really understand the data and can say whether something is right or wrong. All right. There's the last two components I want to highlight is integration. So being able to go across data systems is really important. Like you may have some data in Snowflake, some data in Salesforce, some data in Databricks, or your dashboards in Power BI. And you don't want to have to just use one data platform to leverage AI. Like you want to be able to leverage AI across everything, which is kind of the benefit of using a solution like Alation, because it does have connectors to all these things, and the data products are kind of capturing the knowledge across those platforms. It's just not just limited to like one individual data system. So that's like a big value proposition compared to using a solution that only operates in one environment. Transparency, as I mentioned, is really important as well, and explaining the origin of each query. So we have an agent that analyzes the query, explains how it was generated, and as I highlighted in the demo, shows the source of every metric and dimension that's being used so that we can trace back to the root if we want to do like some rationalization of the answer and comparing with perhaps another answer that is giving conflicting results. And the last piece is the governance, which probably is one of the most important after accuracy. And when you're starting with LLM projects, might not be the first thing that people think about because it's like much further down the road. But for production rollout, this is super, super important. So I can give an example with Your Monitor, for instance. They are selling subscriptions to get access to some data insights, and their customers are buying by region. So like, for instance, someone could buy data for Europe, someone could buy data for the United States. They are all going to use the same platform and chat interface. But if I'm a user that only has access to Europe data, I should not be seeing metrics coming from the United States. And so the way we do that is we have different levels of access control. For this specific example of Your Monitor, row level, meaning like different users will have different permissions, which are enforced at the database level and surfaced through the chat and the agent. But you can also do like data product level, as well as like dimension level, column level, or user level. Like some users may see different data products, some users may see different marketplaces. So there's a lot of customization in the level of access to support all these different scenarios, which happen really commonly in different enterprise organizations. All right, and I'll pause here and we'll start taking questions. I'll let Megan moderate and go over the question list.
Thanks, Ines. Okay, so let's grab some questions from the audience. The first one we have from Jim. Let's see here. Should be able to put this on the screen. Metadata, it seems, is key to learn how to provide quality metadata into objects, not just for human interpretation, but also how AI should interpret it. and be able to provide better quality results. As we have the new prompt engineering to learn, we also need to learn how to provide needed metadata. Any further insight?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that ties back to what I was showing with the feedback mechanism. Like you could ask someone to give good metadata, but without an objective function, it's really hard to know what to optimize for, which is why we're trying to really go to the end result and the use case of if I'm asking the question, what is the answer I'm expecting? And based on that, reverse engineer to say, this is the metadata that you need to answer that question. So instead of saying optimize your metadata without an objective, we're saying optimize the agent's quality at the end, and we will tell you what to do on your metadata to get that answer right.
Okay, great. Thank you. So next question from Emma. Can questions traverse multiple data products? Like, can I ask a question like, why are my sales in the Northwest down when I've doubled marketing spend there?
Yeah, absolutely. So within a chat, you can change data product. There's an agent responsible for identifying the right product for a question, or if you need multiple products, it will like traverse. What you cannot do is write a SQL over two data products. Like you can't join essentially table, but you can compare and ask two separate questions on two different data products.
Okay, great. One of these disappeared, but I remembered it, and it's somebody asked what happens if the source that's within a data product was wrong. Like, is that something we can correct, or
If the source,
hopefully, sorry, the question disappeared, so I might be missing some context. But if the data within the data product was wrong.
I'm not sure I understand fully the question, but ultimately the data product is a continuously evolving object. So if it's if there's things that are invalid in the data product, then as you use, you can improve that. But it'd be good to get more details on what that question is exactly.
Yeah, maybe sorry, if the user wants to add that again, we could redirect it, but I was going from memory on that one. Okay, so let me move on to the next question from Dipu. Can it also answer questions where it requires custom formula columns that should not be aggregated across certain data elements? For example, index values that shouldn't be aggregated over categories or time periods.
So for these guardrails, you can explain them. Let's say you have a metric that computes an aggregation. There's two ways to enforce this. Either you can enforce it in the structure of the data product by not allowing a join, for instance, between the metric field and the dimension and just separating them out completely, like structurally. And that guarantees that it will never happen. But if there's like more complex scenario where sometimes you do want aggregate, but sometimes there's like a edge case where you don't want it to happen, then the other way is to provide the description in the metric description. And you can literally say, do not aggregate this with this dimension. This is the type of logic that can be expressed in natural language in the data product and can help resolve. It's not going to help 100% guarantee, but unless a user goes and explicitly forces the model to say aggregate with this dimension, it won't by default if you provide that description.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ines. Next question is from Brad. What if I already invested in an enterprise semantic model like DBT? Do you integrate with what I already made?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a semantic model and some metrics, we can ingest those as well into the data product. It's really like kind of the idea of leveraging what you already have instead of making you reinvent the wheel, and improving that as well. Like maybe your semantic model is missing some attributes that are needed for some business-facing use cases, and that can also help feed that back into the knowledge layer.
Great. And next question is from Pauline. Can I ask the source directly? Let's let's see, can I ask the source directly, not in the data product?
So the answer is no, unless if you want to go and like write your own SQL. And the reason is this is a product that is aimed to be used by non-technical people, meaning we do want to have some guardrails. If you let the model interact over the source, the scope of answers that it can provide is much bigger, but it comes at the cost that there's less guardrails and we are not guaranteeing that the answers are correct. When we ground the answers in data product, it's a limited scope, but the accuracy is much higher. And for someone that may not be a data user or a data like producer, then they can trust these answers without having to necessarily be an expert in SQL and data. So it's kind of an intentional decision. It's not going to fit everyone's use case, but for non-technical business-facing use cases, this is a better approach.
Okay, great. Next question from Venkata. Can we get the list of dependent objects and tables on a particular object?
Yeah, absolutely. So we trace back lineage up to like the individual columns. So you have metrics. Each metric can be built on top of each other. You have dimensions, and all of those trace back to the source in your warehouse. And if you want to go even deeper, you can use lineage in Alation to understand how a specific column was generated as well.
Okay, great. And let's see, question from Michael. And it looks like this is the last question in the queue. If anyone wants to add any others, please do. But how do access permissions work? How can we ensure our security is enforced?
Yeah, so the process is there's different controls for access. The most obvious is user level. Like you can give user access to a specific data product marketplace. Within the marketplace, you can control access to specific products. And sometimes they can see the data product, but they cannot query it. So you want to give them query access. And then beyond that, in each data product, you can configure different service accounts and assign different users to them to control which rows in a specific table the user has access to. And that can solve the Your Monitor use case I was describing, where you have the same marketplace, the same data product, and then within that data product, different rows should be seen by different user. So that's configured at the service account level and granting those permissions.
Okay, great. So that is the last question that I have, and I wanted to add, would share a couple resources which I'll put in the chat here. One is the chat with your data. Let's see. Sorry, could you move to the next slide? Nowhere. Oh, sorry, I missed one question. Really quick before we do that, can you elaborate on the effort to create and maintain a data product? How many data products do large enterprises typically have?
Yeah, so it depends on the complexity of the schema and the data. Typically, one data product is one use case that can go from like 1 to maybe 10 tables in your data warehouse. Creating is pretty straightforward. You just have to like select the tables. Maintaining and improving is a more involved process, and typically it involves testing a lot. So like asking questions, seeing the answer, and providing feedback. So I'd say like maybe a week of work of training from an admin to set up the data product right. And then organizations, like for instance, JLL, or something in the range of 20 data products for their use cases. Your Monitor is more like in 10. So it depends on how many use cases we want to serve.
Great. Okay, and I wanted to share, thank you, Ines, for answering all those questions, and thank you, everyone. Let's see. Actually, there's one more that came in. Is there a caching mechanism?
There is no caching mechanism. There was very early on in the first version of the system. We intentionally removed it because caching can actually hide some bugs that you're not seeing when you're caching the responses. So instead of caching, we're actually just regenerating on the fly, and that helps have a more reliable, more robust system instead of like, just storing the questions that no one is going to ask the same question twice anyways.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, folks, if there's any other questions out there, feel free to throw them in. But I wanted to share a couple of resources with you. Oh, there's another one here. Are there ways to connect multiple data products?
I think we answered that one. So like within a chat, you can go across two data products, but you cannot join two data products in one query, because let's say you have one question in one instance and the other one in another instance. There's no way to materialize a query that will join these two tables. So it's more like you can jump between data products, but you can like actually connect them.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. I'll keep an eye out for any final questions, but did want to share, let me get my resources back up here. Oops. Sorry, one moment. You can see within the chat, I've shared some resources. There's a blog around chat with your data. There's a blog that actually Euromonitor created with Alation to share more about their use case. I've shared a link for the data products page as well, if you wanted to check that out. And then finally, sorry, I'm just trying to grab my screen. Just wanted to let folks know that we have a super exciting event coming up in Chicago on October 1st. We have Revelation taking place. So we're inviting customers and innovators to come in and learn and network and collaborate with us. So if you haven't signed up yet, we'd love to have you. So let me also share this link in the chat. But other than that, we can wrap up today. I want to thank everybody for attending, and the session will be recorded, so we can share that. Let's see. The Revelation link right there. But hope you all have a good rest of your day, a morning, evening, wherever you are. And thanks again for joining us.